Look at this landscape. This is the plain of Arafat and the rocky peak of Mount Jabal al-Rahma. It's a harsh, stark expanse of barren desert in Saudi Arabia, and every year, millions of people gather here under the scorching sun. Islamic tradition holds that this exact mountain is where human history restarted. After Adam and Eve were cast down to earth and separated, they wandered the world searching for one another, finally reuniting right here on these rocky slopes. That specific moment gave the mountain its identity. In Arabic, the root word Arafah means to know or to recognize. It is the literal site of humanity's first reunion. Fast forward thousands of years to 632 CE, the 10th year of the Hijrah. Word suddenly spread across Arabia that Prophet Muhammad was embarking on the Hajj pilgrimage. People dropped their tools, left their businesses, and rushed from places as far as Syria and Yemen to join him. This desolate stretch of land, the ancient site of human recognition, was deliberately chosen by the Prophet to serve as the staging ground for his final, definitive address to humanity. By the time the caravan reached the plains, it had swelled to massive proportions. Over 100,000 pilgrims converged, forming a sprawling, ancient encampment. Among this chaotic sea of people was a young boy named Nubayt ibn Sharit. Standing alongside his father and uncle, he caught his very first awestruck glimpse of the Prophet riding through the crowd on a camel. When the Prophet finally addressed the gathered masses, he delivered a devastating premonition. He told them to listen carefully, warning that he might not be alive to meet them here the following year. A wave of realization rippled through the followers. The typical rituals of the Hajj were now heavy with the weight of a final farewell. Knowing this was his final opportunity to address the gathered tribes, the Prophet treated his upcoming words as the summary of his life's work, the closing instructions for those he would leave behind. Standing before the massive crowd, he began laying down severe structural decrees. He immediately abolished all forms of usury and interest, and declared that the blood and property of every Muslim were strictly sacred and protected from one another. He mandated strict economic equality, specifically commanding the crowd to feed the poor with the exact same quality of food that they served at their own tables. He then spoke with intense emotion about women, demanding they be treated with kindness and ethical care, establishing explicit rights and protections for them in a society that had routinely ignored them. Looking out over the 100,000 faces, he asked them a direct question. On the day of judgment, when asked, how would they testify? The crowd roared back in unison, confirming that he had fulfilled his duty and delivered the message. Hearing this, he raised his index finger to the sky, asking God to bear witness to their answer. These words formed a radical human rights manifesto, deliberately constructed to permanently dismantle the tribal hierarchies and violent injustices of 7th century Arabia. As afternoon set in, the physical reality of the desert took over. Under a blazing, unforgiving sun, the Prophet raised his hands in prayer and stood on the mountain from noon until the late afternoon, never once lowering his arms. Watching him endure this immense physical strain, the crowd grew increasingly concerned. Whispers spread, wondering if he was also enduring the heat while fasting. To settle the matter, a companion sent a bowl of milk through the crowd. The Prophet lifted it and drank publicly, establishing a clear rule that pilgrims standing at Arafat should not fast. He chose to demonstrate that his ultimate priority was the physical well-being of his followers. He protected them from unnecessary ascetic hardship during their most demanding spiritual trial. It was on this mountain that one of the final major Quranic revelations descended. The ancient text of Surah Al-Ma'idah captured the exact words, "Today I have perfected your religion for you." Hearing this official decree, the massive gathering of companions erupted in relief and celebration. Their long struggle to establish their faith was finally complete. But amidst the rejoicing, one man, Umar, broke down into heavy tears. When asked why he wept during such a joyous moment, he pointed to a tragic reality. Umar understood that in the natural order of the world, once something reaches absolute perfection, the only thing left is decline. The completion of the faith meant the messenger's purpose on earth was finished, a deduction realized when the prophet passed away roughly 80 days later. Today, the reach of this day extends far beyond the borders of a single mountain, connecting millions who will never step foot on these rocks. For those unable to make the pilgrimage, fasting on the day of Arafah is said to wipe away 2 entire years of sins. And through the tradition of Tarif, Muslims gather in their local mosques around the world to mirror the exact same afternoon prayers held on the mountain. The day of Arafah persists as a shared moment where a billionaire in a city and a laborer in a village seek the same mercy, repeating the same desperate prayers modeled under the sun 14 centuries ago.